I knew something was off. I couldn't place it at first, but I felt it deep in my bones. It was as if the world around me had begun to shift into a shade of gray I couldn't shake off. The woman I had loved for years, my wife Amanda, seemed different. It was subtle at first, small things that wouldn't make sense to anyone else, but to me, they were like the sound of a distant storm rumbling. Something was brewing. One evening, I came home early from work, hoping to surprise her. I opened the front door, and there she was, Amanda, standing in the kitchen, her back turned to me as she hummed to herself. I noticed her phone lying casually on the counter, screen up. But there was something about the way the screen glowed in the dim kitchen light that caught my attention. The message was brief, just a few words, same time tonight. Can't wait to see you. I froze. My heart began to hammer in my chest. The room suddenly felt suffocating, and my mind raced with 1,000 thoughts. It was the way the message was worded, too casual, too intimate. It could have been from a friend, but something in my gut told me it wasn't. I reached out instinctively, my fingers brushing the phone. The moment I picked it up, Amanda turned around, her smile dropping instantly when she saw me standing there, holding her phone. Her eyes narrowed, almost defensively. I don't know why, but her face flushed as if I had just caught her in the act. That's when I knew. I just knew. The voice in my head screamed at me, but I couldn't bring myself to say anything. Words felt pointless now, didn't they? Instead, I dropped the phone back on the counter, my anger slowly building up. Who's that? I asked, my voice low, trying to keep it together. Her response came quickly, almost too quickly. It's nothing, she said, waving it off like it was an insignificant detail. Just one of my friends. We were talking about dinner plans. Dinner plans? My gut twisted into knots. The lies. It was so obvious now. She wasn't even trying to cover her tracks. That's when I knew I had to get the truth, whatever the cost. My blood boiled in my veins as a surge of adrenaline hit me. I had spent years building a life with this woman, and now it felt like she was shattering everything with every word she spoke. She saw my expression, the way my jaw tightened, and tried to play it off as a joke. Come on, babe, you're overreacting, she said with a laugh, her eyes avoiding mine. It's really nothing. You're being ridiculous. Ridiculous? No, I wasn't the ridiculous one. The ridiculous one was the woman standing in front of me, acting like I was the problem. She could see the doubt in my eyes, the skepticism written all over my face, but instead of offering the truth, she only doubled down. You know I'm not the kind of person who would ever cheat on you, she said, her voice all sugar and sweetness, as though she was the one who'd been wronged. I didn't respond. I couldn't. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of lies, and I had no way to get out. The woman I had trusted, the one who swore she loved me, was hiding something. Something big. And it was right there, right in front of me. The knot in my stomach grew tighter as my mind churned, trying to make sense of everything. It wasn't the first time I'd felt this way. There had been other moments, too. The late nights, the evasive answers, the way she'd become more distant over the past few months. But I had brushed it off, thinking I was just being paranoid. Now, all those little things suddenly connected. And the thing that stood out the most wasn't just the message. It was her reaction. She was nervous. Too nervous. And that was something I'd learned the hard way. When someone is too nervous, it usually means they're hiding something. She tried to act casual, but I saw through it. I knew her better than anyone else. There was no way in hell she was telling me the whole truth. But how far had this affair gone? How deep was the betrayal? I couldn't stop the questions from flooding my mind. The storm was closing in. I couldn't stand there much longer, pretending that everything was fine. I turned on my heel, walking toward the living room, trying to breathe through the rage that was building inside me. Amanda followed me, her footsteps tentative, unsure. She knew I wasn't buying her lies anymore. And the worst part was, I wasn't sure I even wanted to. "Where are you going?" she asked, her voice a little too sharp, a little too forced. I didn't answer. Instead, I grabbed my jacket from the couch and headed for the door. She stood there for a moment, watching me, then rushed over. "You're not seriously leaving, are you?" I didn't know what I was doing. Part of me just wanted to get the hell out of that house, get away from her, but the other part of me, the part that had spent years with her, wanted the truth. I needed it, and I needed it now. I turned to face her, my eyes cold, the anger I'd been holding back finally spilling over. "Don't make me leave, Amanda. I'm not in the mood for your games anymore. You owe me the truth." Her face contorted for a second, then she straightened, her voice icy. "What do you think you're going to do? Storm out and act like you're some big martyr? Get over yourself." I shook my head. "You're unbelievable." It wasn't just her words. It was the way she said them, with such ease, like there was nothing at stake. She didn't even seem remotely affected by the fact that I just caught her in the middle of what I could only assume was an affair. "You're so dramatic," she muttered, crossing her arms. "You're acting like I've done something unforgivable. This is all in your head. You're being insecure." I let out a bitter laugh. "Insecure? Is that what this is? Me being insecure? No, Amanda, this is about you lying to my face. This is about you disrespecting me, and this is about you throwing away everything we've built together because you can't keep your pants on." She flinched at that, but her arrogance didn't fade. Instead, she stepped forward, getting in my face. "And what do you expect me to do? You think I'm going to apologize for being a woman with needs? I've been stuck in this miserable marriage for years, trying to make you happy, pretending everything's fine when it's not. I'm tired of playing the perfect wife, pretending I'm happy while you're so self-absorbed in your little world that you can't see what's right in front of you." I couldn't believe my ears. She was telling me that I was the problem. She was the one who'd been sneaking around behind my back, and yet I was the one to blame. Her words were poison, and they dug into my chest like a blade. But there was something else stirring inside me now. Something cold. Something darker. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was disgusted. "Then why don't you just be honest, Amanda?" I said, my voice low, steady. "Tell me the truth. Who is he? Who's the guy you've been sleeping with?" Her eyes shifted, a quick flicker of guilt, but only for a moment. She was too well trained in this game, too good at hiding her true feelings. She smirked. "Oh, so you think I'm cheating on you? Are you that pathetic?" "Don't play stupid," I snapped. "I know. I saw the message. I'm not blind." She hesitated, just for a second. Then, she leaned in close, as if she was going to kiss me, but her lips just brushed against my ear, and her words were a venomous whisper. "So what if I am? Maybe it's none of your business anymore." I recoiled from her touch. It felt like poison. Like I was standing in the middle of a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. "Where is he, Amanda?" I asked again, this time my voice barely above a whisper. The silence stretched between us like a rope about to snap. She scoffed, stepping back. "You want to meet him? Is that what you want? So you can see what you're missing? Fine. I'll tell you where he is." I stared at her, the words hanging in the air like smoke. My mind was racing, but I didn't know what I was hoping to hear. She was unraveling, but I wasn't sure if I could bring myself to push any further. Would the truth set me free, or would it just destroy me even more? But the next thing I knew, she was already pulling her phone from her pocket, typing something quickly. "He's at the bar down the street," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. Now, go ahead and have your little confrontation, if it makes you feel better. I don't care. Her indifference sent a cold shiver down my spine. I had no idea what I was doing. I knew I should leave. I knew I should just walk away, get out of this toxic nightmare. But something inside me, something primal, refused to let go. I grabbed my coat again, my hand trembling now as I walked to the door. You have no idea what you've done, I muttered under my breath. And just before I stepped outside, I turned back to her, my eyes locking onto hers, a promise hanging in the air. You will regret this, I said quietly. Then, I left. I didn't look back. I walked out into the cold night air, every step heavier than the last. My mind was a whirlwind of confusion and rage, each thought slamming into the next. I had no plan. I didn't even know if I wanted answers anymore, but somehow I was drawn toward that bar she'd mentioned. My hands were shaking, but not from the cold. It was the adrenaline, the fire inside me, that wouldn't let me stop moving. I could already feel the weight of the betrayal crashing over me again and again like waves on a rocky shore. The more I thought about Amanda's words, the more I wanted to strangle the life out of the man who'd taken her from me. Her lover, I thought bitterly, clenching my fists at my sides. I could almost feel the heat in my face as I imagined his smug grin, the same grin I'd never seen but now despised more than anything. The thought of him was unbearable. As I approached the bar, the neon lights flickered above, casting a sickly glow on the street. The place was nearly empty, save for a few scattered patrons nursing drinks, their conversations a dull hum in the background. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for, but instinct guided me forward. There, in the corner booth, sat a man, slightly older than me, dressed in a jacket too expensive for a dive bar. His posture screamed confidence, maybe even arrogance. His eyes were locked on his phone, oblivious to the world around him. I recognized him instantly. It was him. My heart pounded in my chest, but I pushed forward, refusing to let fear stop me. I walked straight toward the booth, my breath shallow and quick, and before he could even look up, I was standing right in front of him. He blinked a couple of times, surprised by the sudden intrusion. He looked me over, then his eyes narrowed in recognition. A smirk played at the corner of his lips. "Can I help you?" His voice was casual, almost dismissive. He clearly didn't recognize the gravity of the situation. "You're the one," I said, my voice a little more forceful than I intended. "You're the one who's been screwing my wife." His smirk faltered for a moment. The confidence he had just a second ago seemed to drain from him. "What the hell are you talking about?" His voice had an edge now, but it was laced with uncertainty. I didn't give him the chance to backpedal. "Don't lie to me. I know about you and Amanda. I know everything." My hands were clenched into fists, my nails digging into my palms, but I couldn't stop myself from speaking. "You think she's some prize, don't you? You think you've won? You're nothing. You're just a coward hiding behind her." His expression flickered, anger mixed with guilt. He sat up straighter, trying to compose himself. But I could see through him now. He wasn't the man he thought he was. He was just another fool who thought he could take what didn't belong to him. "You don't know what you're talking about," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. But there was a crack in it. A moment of fear, just beneath the surface. I smiled, a cold, calculated smile. "Oh, I do know. I know enough to know you're not leaving here without facing the consequences." My voice was flat, dead serious, and the anger that had been bubbling inside me now came to a boiling point. The man's eyes darted around, searching for an escape, but there was nowhere to go. I wasn't leaving until I had the satisfaction of making him feel just a fraction of what I felt. "Listen, man," he began, voice pleading now, "I didn't mean to get involved with your wife. It just happened. I didn't know she was married. You've got to understand. I cut him off, my voice dangerously low. Don't give me that crap. She knew exactly what she was doing. This isn't about me. It's about you, and the choices you made. I leaned in, close enough now that I could feel his breath. His face was pale, and he was trembling just slightly. You don't get to walk away from this. Not after what you've done. He opened his mouth to speak, but before he could get another word out, I slammed my fist into the side of his face. The impact was satisfying, though the blood didn't hit me the way I'd imagined. It was all too easy to shatter that confidence of his, but the pain I wanted to inflict wasn't on his face. No, it was on the inside, the guilt, the shame. His head jerked back from the force, and he grunted, his eyes widening in shock. I could feel the tremor in his hands as he reached up to touch his swollen cheek, and I knew he had no idea what he was dealing with. The emotional rage had twisted into something else, something cold and vengeful. I had nothing left to lose now. Get up, I ordered. You're going to show me where she's at. You're going to tell me exactly where she's been, and you're going to make it right. He hesitated, a coward through and through. I grabbed him by the collar and yanked him to his feet. The man was breathing fast, panic setting in. You don't understand, he said, his voice cracking. I can't. I shoved him hard, sending him stumbling backward into the booth. You can, and you will. My voice was steady, but the storm inside me was far from over. He slowly got to his feet, his face a mix of fear and regret, but there was still defiance in his eyes. He'd made his choices, and now he had to face them. Where is she? I asked again, my voice ice cold. She's at home, he muttered, shaking his head as if he couldn't believe this was happening. She told me she was leaving you. I didn't know what you... I didn't hear the rest. The words were meaningless now. Amanda's betrayal had become something I had to confront head-on. And as I turned to leave, I knew what I had to do next. I didn't even let him finish his sentence. The words echoed in my head, a sickening confirmation of everything I'd suspected but never fully wanted to accept. She was leaving me. The weight of it crashed over me like a tidal wave, and for a moment, I could hardly breathe. The man in front of me, trembling with a mix of fear and guilt, barely registered as my focus zeroed in on that single, damning truth. Amanda had planned it. She had been plotting this all along. And I had been blind. She wasn't just unfaithful. She was abandoning everything we had, everything I believed we were, just like that. I looked at him one last time, and something cold washed over me, like a shadow that overtakes the light. You think I'm going to let this go? I whispered, barely above a breath. The words were more for myself than for him. His eyes widened. He seemed to understand the gravity of the situation now, realizing that the man standing in front of him wasn't someone to be toyed with anymore. He wasn't looking at me like a cuckold or a fool. I wasn't playing the part he might have assumed when he first started his little affair. No. I was a man pushed to the edge, a man who had nothing left to lose. I turned on my heel and left the bar without a second glance. My mind was a battlefield. I had no clear plan. No clear goal. All I knew was that I needed to see her. I needed to confront her. I needed to see her face when I told her that I knew the truth. When I told her that everything was over. The drive home felt like an eternity. The streets blurred by, the dim lights from passing cars streaking through my vision like a twisted dream. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly, my knuckles were white. Every fiber of my being wanted to pull the car over and scream. Scream at the injustice of it all. Scream at the woman who had once been my everything. When I finally parked in front of the house, I didn't even bother to turn off the engine. I just sat there, the low rumble of the engine the only sound filling the silence. The house loomed ahead of me, familiar, yet unrecognizable. This place, once a symbol of comfort, had become the cage of my betrayal. I got out of the car, my steps slow and deliberate. The front door was unlocked, just like it always was when Amanda was inside. I didn't bother to knock. I didn't need to. She was already expecting me, whether she knew it or not. As I stepped inside, the smell of her perfume hit me first. It was a scent I used to associate with love and warmth, but now it only made my stomach turn. The house was eerily quiet, the soft hum of the refrigerator the only sound in the stillness. She was here. I moved toward the living room, the walls seeming to close in on me with every step. And then, I saw her. Amanda. Sitting there, looking so calm, so composed, as if nothing had changed. Her hair was messy, her eyes distant, like she was lost in thought, waiting for me to walk through the door. When she saw me, her eyes briefly flickered with something. Fear? Guilt? But she quickly masked it, flashing a smile that was too perfect. Too fake. "Hey, babe," she said, as if we hadn't just been living in different worlds for the past few months. "How was your day?" I didn't even answer. I couldn't. Instead, I walked toward her, my mind a blur of anger and pain, but somehow, still, I was in control. I needed her to feel what I was feeling. I needed her to understand that her lies had consequences. "You think I don't know?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, but it carried the weight of 1,000 broken promises. "You think you can lie to me forever?" "I know everything, Amanda." Her face went white, her lips parting slightly as if she had been struck. She stood up from the couch, but her legs were shaky. "What are you talking about?" she stammered, but even she couldn't hide the panic creeping into her voice. "You don't get to do this," I said, my words cutting through the air. "You don't get to play me like a fool. You've been sleeping with him. You've been planning to leave me. You think I'm too stupid to figure it out?" Her hand flew to her mouth, her eyes widening. I don't know what you're talking about," she managed to get out, her voice wavering. "You're crazy. You're just..." I couldn't hear it anymore. I couldn't hear her lie to my face one more time. The anger that had been bubbling under the surface for so long exploded, and without thinking, I grabbed her by the wrist and pulled her toward the dining table. "Don't lie to me anymore," I growled. My grip tightened, and she gasped in pain, but I didn't care. "You're done. We're done. I don't care what you say. You've already made your choice." Her eyes filled with tears, but I couldn't find the sympathy I once had for her. All I felt now was betrayal, raw and painful, like a deep wound that wouldn't heal. "You have no right to," she began, but her voice was weak now, desperate. "No right?" I shouted, cutting her off. "You don't get to make demands. You don't get to act like the victim. I know what you've been doing, Amanda." And with that, I let go of her wrist. She stumbled back, her breath coming in short gasps, eyes wide with disbelief. I was done. As I turned and walked out of the room, I felt a strange emptiness settle over me. The anger was still there, but it didn't matter anymore. Nothing mattered anymore. I was walking away from a life I had built, and I didn't know what would come next. But I wasn't about to let her drag me down with her lies. I had to go. I had to be free. The door closed behind me, and I didn't look back. I could hear her faint cries behind me as I left, but I didn't stop. The sound only spurred me forward, each step pulling me further away from the life I thought I had. I could almost feel the weight of everything crashing down on me. My legs felt numb, my mind a void, but something told me to keep moving, to keep leaving it all behind. I didn't care about the house anymore. I didn't care about the promises. I didn't care about Amanda. All I cared about was escaping. I had to go. I needed air, space, silence. I needed to be free from her lies, her manipulation. The night wrapped around me like a cloak, cold but oddly comforting, as if the world itself was telling me it was okay to let go. I walked to my car, my footsteps quick and uneven, but the pounding of my heart was deafening in my ears. I didn't even know where I was going. My brain was fogged with the shock of everything, the betrayal still fresh, still raw. But I couldn't stay there. Not now. Not with her. I climbed into my car and slammed the door shut, my hands shaking on the wheel. For a moment, I just sat there, staring into the empty street, trying to gather myself. I needed to breathe. I needed to feel something other than the bitterness that was filling me up, threatening to spill over. I put the car in gear, my foot heavy on the gas, and drove. The world outside blurred by, and I let my thoughts drift. They were like wildfire, too fast to control, too chaotic to tame. I remembered the first time I met Amanda, how her smile had seemed like it could light up an entire room. How I had believed in her, trusted her, loved her. I thought we had something special. But all of that was just a lie. The city passed in the rearview mirror, the lights dimming in the distance as I drove into the unknown. I had no destination. No plan. But something deep inside told me I had to keep moving. I don't know how much time had passed when I finally found myself in the middle of nowhere, a stretch of road with nothing around but the hum of the engine and the night. I pulled over, turned off the car, and sat there in silence. The emptiness in my chest had expanded, and for the first time in a long while, I let myself feel it. I wasn't angry anymore. At least not in the way I had been. What I felt now was something deeper. Something darker. A hollow ache that gnawed at my insides. I had spent so long building my life around her, around the idea of us, and now, nothing was left. She had taken everything. She had stolen my trust, my love, and now she had taken my peace. I wanted to scream, but there was no one to hear it. No one to share the pain. I felt so alone. So utterly alone. She had lied, and she had left me to pick up the pieces. But I didn't know how to put it back together. I didn't even know if I wanted to anymore. There were no answers coming. No answers that would make it better. No way to take away the bitterness, the heartbreak. It was just me now. Just me and the night. I don't know how long I sat there, my mind numb, my hands gripping the wheel, but eventually, I opened the door and stepped outside. The night air hit me like a wave, cold and sharp. It reminded me that I was still here. Still breathing. Still alive. And as I stood there, looking out into the void of darkness, I realized something. I wasn't sure how I was going to move forward. I wasn't sure what my next step would be. But for the first time, I felt a flicker of something new, a sense of strength. I wasn't broken. Not yet. And maybe that's all I needed to know right now. I wasn't done. Not yet. I turned back to my car and got in, my hands still trembling, but there was a determination building inside me. I didn't have the answers. I didn't have a plan. But I had my life. And I would figure out what to do with it. As I started the car and pulled back onto the road, I didn't know where I was going. But I knew one thing, I wasn't going back to her. I wasn't going to stay in that house, in that lie. I was moving forward. And I would be okay. I had to be. The engine hummed beneath me as I navigated through the dark, aimless roads. The world felt like a distant blur, my mind trapped in the aftermath of everything that had shattered in the past few hours. I was supposed to be in control, supposed to have some sort of understanding of what was happening. But I didn't. I was spiraling, and the road ahead seemed to stretch endlessly, like a metaphor for the uncertainty I now found myself in. I couldn't remember the last time I had felt this lost. Amanda had always been my anchor, the person I leaned on, and now she was nothing more than a stranger whose face I could barely recognize. The woman I loved had become a stranger who had deceived me. I should have known something was off. I should have picked up on the signs, but I had been blind, too trusting, too naive. Her smile, once so comforting, now felt like a betrayal. The scent of her perfume lingered in my mind, reminding me of every moment we'd shared, every promise we made. But now those moments seemed hollow, built on lies. She had been so convincing, so sure of herself, I never once questioned her. I didn't even realize how deep she had buried her deceit until I saw the truth for myself. The rage inside me had simmered down, but it wasn't gone. There was something else now, something colder, more calculating. It wasn't anger anymore, it was a deep, gnawing sense of betrayal that left me feeling hollow. I had been used. Manipulated. My trust had been taken for granted. And all I had left now was this empty space, this void that seemed to consume me from the inside out. I passed through unfamiliar streets, the city lights flickering in the distance, their glow a faint reminder of a life I had once known. It didn't feel like home anymore. Nothing felt familiar. The thought of Amanda haunted me, but I couldn't let myself turn back. No matter how much my heart ached, I couldn't allow myself to fall into that trap again. She had made her choice. She had chosen him, and she had left me in the wreckage. I pulled into a parking lot, unsure why I had even stopped. The car idled quietly, the silence surrounding me almost suffocating. I rested my hands on the wheel, staring straight ahead, but there was nothing in front of me but the dark expanse of the night. My chest was tight with emotions I couldn't name, hurt, confusion, resentment, and yet, there was something else, relief. Relief? It seemed strange to feel it, but in some way, I had been freed. Freed from the chains of a relationship that was nothing but lies. Freed from the fantasy I had built up in my head. It didn't make the hurt go away, but it gave me space. Space to breathe. To heal. I wasn't sure what was next. The thought of going back to the house, of seeing her again, of confronting her further, made my stomach churn. I couldn't face that. I couldn't let her manipulate me any longer. She had crossed a line that couldn't be undone. I took a deep breath, letting the cold air fill my lungs. It was strange, feeling so numb, yet strangely calm at the same time. I wasn't sure what the future held for me. The idea of starting over, of moving forward without her, seemed impossible. But I had to. I had to get past this. I slammed my fist against the steering wheel, a sharp, quick release of the anger that had been boiling under the surface. But it didn't feel like enough. It didn't satisfy the hunger for justice, for retribution. The truth had already settled in my mind. There was nothing I could do to change what had happened. But I would never let her forget what she had done. I would make sure of that. I turned the car off, and sat there in the silence for a long while. My body ached from the tension, from the emotions that were tearing me apart, but I was still here. I was still standing. The realization settled over me like a weight. I wasn't going to let her win. I wasn't going to let her leave me in ruins. She might have broken me for a moment, but she hadn't taken everything from me. I still had my dignity. I still had my pride. I pulled myself together, wiped my face, and started the car once more. There was nothing for me back there, no more lies to unravel, no more false hope. I had nothing left to fight for with her. But I wasn't going to crawl into a hole and let the darkness consume me. I was going to take that first step forward, no matter how hard it was. The road ahead might have been unclear, but I knew one thing for sure, I wasn't going to keep looking back. No more. I couldn't afford to. The anger, the sadness, they would pass. But the strength I would find in moving forward? That would be mine forever. I took a left turn, the headlights cutting through the night, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, I felt like I was headed somewhere, even if I didn't know where. And that was enough for now. I didn't know if I would ever find closure or forgiveness. But I knew that in this moment, I was finally taking control. And that was all I could do. The night stretched on, my mind racing even though my body moved in a haze. I wasn't sure where I was heading, but I knew that being in motion, even aimless, was better than being still, better than returning to that house where everything had crumbled. The road I had chosen seemed endless, just like the thoughts tumbling through my brain, each one more jarring than the last. Amanda's face flickered in my mind, her fake smile that once made me feel safe, her eyes that now felt hollow, a mirror of everything that had just broken. The betrayal wasn't just in the affair, it was in every little thing she did to keep me in the dark. Her lies ran deeper than the surface. How long had she been planning this? How many little things had I missed? It was a dark realization to come to, that all those years, those smiles, the whispered, "I love yous," had been nothing but a well-practiced act. And somehow, I had been so blind, so caught up in my own desire to believe in what we had, that I hadn't even seen the cracks. As I passed a small diner, I turned into the parking lot. The headlights reflected off the dirty windows, and for a moment, I just stared at the sign, trying to bring myself back to the present. The quiet buzz of the neon lights was almost soothing. I wasn't ready to be alone with my thoughts again. I stepped out of the car, my legs shaky as I made my way inside. The bell above the door jingled, the soft sound almost like an echo of my feelings. There weren't many people inside, just a few regulars, their heads down, focused on their food or their phones. I walked past them, taking a seat in the back corner, where the shadows swallowed me whole. A waitress came by, a young woman with kind eyes. She asked if I wanted a coffee, and I nodded. I didn't care what it was. I just needed something to hold on to distract myself from the chaos that was spinning in my mind. She placed the coffee on the table and left, and I was alone again. My thoughts clashed with each other in a brutal dance, each memory of Amanda a slap in the face, a reminder of how little I knew about the woman I had married. And how easily she had destroyed me. But there was something else too, something that I couldn't ignore. Anger. A fury that had been bubbling beneath the surface for so long, and now, it was spilling over. It was hard to deny it. She hadn't just lied to me. She hadn't just taken another man into our bed. No, it was more than that. She had disrespected me in ways I hadn't even realized. I could still hear her voice in my head, the way she had tried to justify herself earlier. "You're crazy. You're overreacting. It wasn't what you think." But I knew better now. I knew what it was. I knew what she had been doing. And I wasn't going to let her play me for a fool anymore. I took a sip of the coffee, the bitterness mixing with the sour taste in my mouth. It burned, but it felt like the only thing that could match the rage inside me. A sudden thought struck me, was this who I had become? This broken man, sitting alone in a diner, stewing in my anger, my sadness? Was I letting her win by letting myself wallow in this pain? She had already taken so much from me. My trust. My security. My peace of mind. But I wasn't done yet. I couldn't let her win. I had to keep moving forward, somehow. I stood up, pushing the chair back with a sharp scrape. The waitress looked at me as I left, her expression unreadable. I didn't care. I didn't care about anything anymore except getting out of my head. I couldn't think of her, of the life we had built, the lies she had spun, any longer. I stepped back outside, the cold air biting at my skin. The world around me seemed so distant, so removed from what I had just gone through. It was as if everything was moving, and I was standing still. I got back into my car, the familiar hum of the engine comforting in its monotony. But even as I drove, I felt myself slipping, the anger surging again. I gripped the wheel tighter, my knuckles turning white. There had to be something I could do. Something that would give me control back. I couldn't keep driving forever. Eventually, I'd have to face it, the mess she had left me with. The broken promises. The lies. But that didn't mean I had to face it on her terms. The thought of confronting her again filled me with a sickening dread. I didn't want to see her. I didn't want to hear her lies anymore. But there was a part of me that knew, no matter how much I wanted to avoid her, no matter how much I wanted to pretend she didn't exist, I had to face the truth. I couldn't keep running. I made a sudden decision, the only one that made sense. I was going to cut her out of my life, completely. There was no going back, no reconciling what had been broken. I couldn't keep pretending I didn't know what she had done to me. I couldn't keep pretending it didn't hurt. I turned the car around, heading back to the house. It was time. Time to face everything she had done. Time to end this chapter once and for all. As I pulled into the driveway, my heart raced. The house loomed ahead, dark and silent, like it was waiting for me. I wasn't sure what I would say to her, but it didn't matter. It was time for the final confrontation. Time to put an end to the lies. Time to leave her, and everything she had taken from me, behind. No more running. I stepped out of the car, my feet crunching against the gravel as I walked toward the door. It felt like the universe had shifted beneath me, the air thick with everything that had led to this moment. I wasn't just walking into the house anymore, I was walking into my own fate. The culmination of everything I had allowed myself to endure, everything I had ignored for so long. I had given her so much, and in return, she had shattered me. But now, it was my turn. I wasn't the broken man anymore. I wasn't the victim. I reached the door, the familiar sight of the front step now a distant memory, something that belonged to another life. A life I no longer wanted to live. I knocked once. It echoed through the quiet night, loud and final. A few moments later, the door opened. She stood there, her expression unreadable, her eyes still holding the remnants of her lies. The same look she had given me when she first betrayed me. But this time, it was different. This time, I wasn't seeing her through rose-colored glasses. I saw her for who she really was. And I was done. "Is there something you want?" she asked, her voice defensive, still feigning innocence. I took a deep breath, steadying myself before I spoke, but I felt calm, too calm. The fire inside me had burned through all the rage, all the anger, leaving only the truth. I was no longer waiting for apologies. I was no longer looking for answers. I had nothing left to ask. "I know what you did," I said, my voice unwavering. Her face tightened, eyes flashing with panic. "What are you talking about?" she asked quickly, but her words betrayed her. There was a crack in her facade. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out a small box, the one thing I had held on to for days. Her lover's ring. The one she had left behind in her rush to cover her tracks. It had taken me a while to find him, to track down the pieces of this horrific puzzle, but in the end, I had everything I needed. I threw the ring onto the floor in front of her. It landed with a soft clink. Her breath hitched, and she took a step back, her hand instinctively going to her mouth as if trying to silence the truth from escaping. "You know," I continued, my voice cutting through the tense air like a blade, "I've seen everything. I've heard everything. And I'm done being your fool." Her eyes began to water, but she didn't say anything. She didn't have to. The silence between us spoke louder than any words could. The truth was all around us, suffocating us in its weight. "I tried," I said, the words heavy in my chest. "I tried to love you, tried to trust you, tried to make this work. But you," I stopped, shaking my head as if to clear away the fog. "You didn't just cheat on me. You killed the man I was. The man who thought he had a future with you. You destroyed everything we were." She opened her mouth, but no words came out. The tears streamed down her face, but I didn't care anymore. I wasn't the one who needed to apologize. She was. You had everything, I went on, my voice quieter now, as if I were speaking to myself. And you threw it all away. You thought you could do this to me and get away with it. But you're wrong. You're not going to keep running. Not from me. Not from the truth. For a moment, I thought she might collapse, but she didn't. Instead, she stood there, a broken version of the woman I had once adored. But she wasn't mine anymore. And the weight of that realization was more liberating than anything I had ever felt. Get out, I said, the words burning with finality. Get out of my life. She opened her mouth again, but no words came. The look in her eyes was one of pure fear, of everything unraveling in front of her. But it was too late. There was nothing she could say that would change what had already been done. No tear, no apology, no excuse could undo the damage she had caused. I turned away without looking back, and as I walked toward the door, I heard her behind me, her voice shaking, calling my name. But I didn't stop. I didn't turn around. I had nothing left to say to her. I had given her everything. But now, I was reclaiming it all. I stepped outside, into the cold night air. The darkness was vast, infinite, but I felt a strange peace settling over me. This was it. This was the end of the story I never asked for, the story that had been written in lies, betrayal, and heartache. But it didn't matter. What mattered was that I was still here. I was still standing. I had lost everything, but in doing so, I had found myself. The man I was supposed to be. The man I was always meant to become. Strong, resolute, unbroken. I closed the door behind me, and as the sound of the lock clicked into place, I finally understood something. No one could break me unless I let them. And I wasn't going to let anyone break me again.
Can you believe he still has no idea? 3 kids, all yours, and he's still paying for their private school. That voice. Her voice. Lauren. My wife. I froze on the stairs, one hand gripping the mahogany rail like it was the only thing keeping me from collapsing. It was just past midnight on Thanksgiving Eve, and I had come down to grab the pie I forgot to take out of the car. I never expected to hear that. The worst part? She laughed. A sharp, smug laugh, like this whole thing was a joke. I leaned closer, careful not to make a sound. The voice on the other end of the phone was a man's. Deep. Confident. Probably the same bastard I once shook hands with at our daughter's soccer game. Baby, I told you, I'd take care of it. He's so wrapped around your finger it's embarrassing. Hell, even his mom helped us cover our tracks. You're untouchable. My mother. My own mother knew? My stomach turned. Something in me died in that moment. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even breathe. I just listened. Frozen in time. Tell me again how he still thinks Liam is his. The guy chuckled. Lauren dropped her voice and said, because he's an idiot. Because I fake it. Because I pretend. That was it. That was the last straw. I turned and walked out the front door. I didn't take the pie. I didn't even take a jacket. I sat in my truck the whole damn night, staring at nothing. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. MOM, don't do anything stupid. Think of the kids. I didn't reply. Instead, I drove 2 hours to a lab the next morning and handed over 3 toothbrushes. Liam's. Ava's. Jonas. I had collected them over the last month. I don't even know why. Some sick instinct. I added mine to the box. Paid extra for express. While the turkey was roasting back home, I sat in a cheap motel watching old reruns of Judge Judy, waiting for an email. It came at 2:47 p.m. I knew before I opened it. Still, I clicked. Still, I read. Still, I died a little more. Conclusion. Probability of paternity 0%. For all 3. That night, I came home with a smile. Not a fake one, a real, cold, calculated one. Dinner was already on the table. My wife were red. Always red on holidays. She said it made her feel powerful. She had no idea. Everyone was seated. My mother. My fake kids. Her smug, lying self. I stood up to carve the turkey, then paused. I forgot something, I said. I walked to the kitchen, opened my bag, and pulled out 3 envelopes. I came back in, placed each one neatly on a dinner plate, like a second course, and sat down. What's this? Lauren asked, her brow furrowing. I didn't answer. She opened hers. Silence. Then, her face drained. She tried to speak, but no sound came out. My mother opened hers next. Her hand flew to her mouth. Is this some kind of joke? Lauren whispered. I leaned forward, elbows on the table, stared right into her soul, and said, No, Lauren, this is Thanksgiving. She stood up, shaking. You can't just leave. What about the kids? What about their future? I laughed. Not hard. Not maniacally. Just defeated. Oh, now you care about the kids' future? Maybe you should ask your lover to pay for private school now. Or better yet, get a job. She screamed at me then. A tantrum. Called me names. Called him a real man. I didn't flinch. I walked out the door, left the house, the car, the furniture, all of it. Vanished. I rebuilt everything from the ground up. It took 10 years. I came back with a new name, a new life, and 9 zeros in my account. And last week, I saw Lauren again. At the grocery store. She didn't recognize me. Not until I said, I don't have change for your kids, sweetheart. Maybe call their real dad. Her face turned ghost white. She stood there holding a dented can of beans. Her boyfriend came limping down the aisle with a beer belly and a dead stare. Me? I was wearing a suit that cost more than their car. Some things don't need revenge. Some things just are. I should have seen it coming. Looking back, the red flags weren't just waving, they were on fire. Lauren wasn't even subtle about it. It started with little things. Like how she suddenly hated cuddling at night. Said it made her sweaty and claustrophobic. Funny, because she used to curl up into my chest like I was the only safe place in the world. Then came the locked phone. Before, she'd leave it anywhere, on the counter, bathroom sink, even in the car. Now, she wouldn't take a piss without it in her hand like it was her newborn child. One night, I walked into the kitchen, and she slammed her laptop shut like it had caught fire. What was that? I asked, trying not to sound suspicious. Work stuff, she snapped. You wouldn't understand. Lauren was a school counselor. What kind of work stuff required her to Google best hotels near Lakewood at midnight? She also stopped arguing with me. At first, I thought maybe she was maturing, growing emotionally. But no, she just stopped caring. Didn't react when I was late. Didn't notice when I forgot her birthday dinner reservation. She was mentally checked out, and I was too blind to see it. Then came the perfume. That perfume I never bought. A spicy, floral scent that clung to her coat and neck like fingerprints. When I asked her about it, she said her friend Heather gave it to her. Heather, who lived in Oregon. Another night, I picked up her phone while it was ringing. It was saved as Carla, work. I answered. Silence. Then click. 5 minutes later, Lauren ran into the room pale-faced and out of breath. Did you answer my phone? She asked. Yeah. Carla hung up. She gave a tight smile. Oh, weird. I'll call her back. She didn't. After that, the excuses became her second language. Her car broke down 4 times in a month. She had girls' nights that lasted until 4 a.m. She started doing yoga, but never came back sore or sweaty. And yet, I stayed. I made breakfast. I kissed her forehead every morning. I believed. Because sometimes it's easier to lie to yourself than face the earthquake coming straight for your chest. But the moment that cracked me completely happened on a Sunday. I'd taken Liam to soccer, and when we came back, the garage was open. Inside, Lauren stood way too close to a man. Tall, clean cut, wearing cologne I'd smelled once in our bedsheets but couldn't place. I watched them through the window. She laughed, touched his shoulder. That laugh, it was the one she used to save for me. When they noticed me, she jumped back like she'd seen a ghost. This is Marcus, she blurted. He's just helping me with a school fundraiser. Marcus smiled at me. Smiled like he already won. I nodded and said nothing. That night, I didn't ask questions. I sat on the couch, stared at the family photos on the wall, and felt like a stranger in my own home. 3 days later, I started collecting DNA. Hair, toothbrushes, stray socks. And I waited. The night before Thanksgiving, I got my confirmation in stereo, her voice on that call, mocking me like I was the family's unpaid babysitter. I used to think betrayal came with screaming, fists through walls, or dramatic tears. But it doesn't. It comes quietly, like frost on your windshield, spreading slowly, until you can't see where you're going anymore. And she knew exactly where she was going. 2 days after Thanksgiving, I came back to the house one last time. Not because I wanted closure. I'd already buried whatever love I had for Lauren, but because I needed to hear it from her lips. I needed her to lie to my face. One final insult to finish the masterpiece of betrayal she'd painted all over our life. I walked in like I owned the place, even though technically I still did. Lauren was sitting at the kitchen island, scrolling on her phone with a glass of white wine. She looked up, surprised but not scared. That alone told me everything. She still thought she had control. "Back so soon," she said with a smirk, not even pretending to play nice. "Thought you'd run off crying to your mommy." I stared at her. Funny, considering my mom was the one helping you lie to me for over a decade. The smirk faltered. "I know, Lauren," I said. "I know about Marcus. I know about the kids. I know they're not mine." She blinked once, then took a slow sip of her wine. "DNA doesn't change what kind of man you are, Blake." That was her opening line. DNA doesn't change what kind of man you are. Like I was supposed to be proud of raising another man's kids while she played house with her lover behind my back. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. "You lied to me for 13 years. Do you even know who their father is?" She rolled her eyes. "They're yours, emotionally. What does biology matter? You think kids need DNA to love someone?" "I don't know, Lauren. You tell me. You seem to think your love needed Marcus's. What? Bank account? Abs? Bedroom tricks?" That hit her. She stood up, fire in her eyes. "Don't you dare talk to me like that. You weren't present, Blake. You were working all the time. You cared more about meetings and promotions than me. You mean while I was working to pay for your lifestyle? Your spa days, your fake friends, your Louis Vuitton diaper bags? While he was giving you the one thing I didn't, attention." "You're damn right," she snapped. "He made me feel alive again." I stared at her. "So you repay me by letting me believe I'm the father of kids who aren't mine. By letting me build a life on a foundation made of your lies. You think you're a saint," she said, voice rising. "You think because you bought groceries and fixed the sink, you were a hero? You were boring, Blake. Predictable. Safe. And I got tired of safe. That was it. No apology. No shame. She wasn't even sorry." I stepped closer. "So when you asked me for money last week for school fees, were you actually planning to use it on Marcus? For another hotel weekend?" She didn't answer. Just stared at me with narrowed eyes. "You're not leaving me broke, Blake. I have 3 kids to take care of." I shook my head slowly. "They're not my kids, Lauren. That's Marcus's job now. Or maybe someone else's. Hell, take a number. Might be a few more out there." That's when she threw the wine glass. It smashed against the wall inches from my head. She screamed, "You selfish piece of—" I didn't flinch. Just walked to the door and said, "Enjoy the mess, Lauren. You created it." She ran after me, barefoot on cold tile, yelling, "You can't leave me with nothing. You think you're rich now? You're still that scared little man who begged me to go out with him." I paused, turned around, and smiled. "You're right. I was that man. But now, I'm the guy who disappeared with everything and didn't leave crumbs." I left her standing there, surrounded by the ruins of her own drama. And I never looked back. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't punch walls or drink myself into oblivion. I drove. Miles and hours passed like fog on the windshield. I didn't even know where I was going, just away. Away from that house, away from Lauren's voice in my head, away from those kids who weren't mine but still called me dad. The worst part wasn't the betrayal. It wasn't the years of lies or the fact that my own mother helped her pull it off. The worst part was me. How I missed it. How I accepted the distance, the cold kisses, the late nights out. I let it happen. I pulled over at a gas station just outside the state line and sat on the curb like some lost teenager. I stared at my hands like they belonged to someone else. These hands fed them, bathed them, picked up the pieces of broken toys and scraped knees. And now they felt empty. That night, I checked into a motel under a fake name. Jack Riley. I don't know why I chose that. Maybe because Jack sounded tougher than Blake. Blake was the fool. Jack had nothing to lose. Sleep didn't come. I lay there, eyes wide, watching the ceiling fan spin like it was mocking me. At 4:13 a.m., I made a decision. I wasn't going back. Not to the house. Not to the life. Everything I'd built was on quicksand, and I was done pretending it was stable ground. I opened my laptop and started selling everything. Stocks. Accounts. Property. I emptied retirement funds, canceled college savings. I left just enough in a joint account so she wouldn't call the cops. Then I logged into a dormant account, one I hadn't touched since college. A separate investment portfolio I'd created as a backup, just in case life ever really kicked me in the teeth. Guess what? Life did. And I was ready. I bought one-way tickets. Sold the car. disconnected every number she had for me. Even my mother got blocked. I became a ghost. But not just any ghost, one with purpose. I wasn't running. I was reloading. In 6 months, I had tripled my savings through crypto, timing the market better than I ever had in my 9-to-5 years. I moved from one small town to another, kept my head down, read more books than I had in the last 10 years, and learned business, psychology, marketing, real estate, and how to spot a liar from a mile away. For the first time in years, I was alone, and it felt like breathing underwater after finally breaking the surface. Lauren tried to reach me. Dozens of emails came flooding in. The first one was tearful. I was stupid. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Please come home. Then came the angry ones. You coward. You abandoned your family. They still need you. And finally, the desperate ones. Liam needs braces. Ava is getting bullied. Jonah wants to see you. Please, just send something. I didn't answer any of them. Not because I didn't feel anything, but because I felt everything, and I knew if I opened that door again, I'd never shut it. Instead, I turned the storm inside me into fuel. I started a company, then another, then bought out a competitor just to prove I could. By year 3, I'd become the silent owner of 3 logistics firms, 2 software startups, and a property group in Texas. The man who once couldn't sleep in his own house now had homes in 5 cities, and not one of them had room for betrayal. I wasn't Blake anymore. I was Jack Riley now. And Jack had one rule: never trust anyone who starts a sentence with, I swear. It happened at the grocery store, of all places. Not some dramatic courtroom, not a high-end gala, not even a funeral. Just a regular Saturday afternoon in the canned goods aisle of a dusty Safeway on the edge of town. I wasn't supposed to be there. I had a meeting cancel last minute, and something inside me pulled me toward that store. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe fate. Maybe I just wanted to see what the ruins of my old life looked like up close. I was reaching for a can of black beans when I heard it, that voice. Tired. Slower. Still sharp around the edges. Jonah, put that down. We can't afford extra snacks today. I froze. Lauren. She was standing 20 feet away. Hair pulled back into a messy ponytail, bags under her eyes, the once flawless skin she pampered now dull and pale. No makeup. No sparkle. Just a woman who looked like she'd aged 20 years and 5. And next to her? Marcus. Or what was left of Marcus. Beer belly. Limp in his right leg. The kind of guy who gave up a long time ago but still wore those wannabe alpha sunglasses on his head like a crown. He was pushing a half-empty cart and looked like he was doing it under protest. I could have turned and walked away. I should have. But something dark bubbled up in me. Something that had been waiting years for this moment. I waited until they walked past me. Jonah trailed behind them, eyes on his shoes. The same kid I used to teach how to ride a bike. The same kid I used to think was mine. Lauren didn't even notice me at first. But then I said, casually, still buying beans on discount? Must be tough. She turned, confused. And then, her face shifted. That moment will stay with me until I die. Her eyes widened. Her mouth opened slightly, just a breath of disbelief escaping. She knew. She knew. Even if I looked different, leaner, sharper, dressed in a jacket that cost more than her rent, she knew. Blake? She whispered, like the word burned. I smiled, slow and cruel. Nah, I go by Jack now. Blake died. You remember him, right? He used to make breakfast for your kids. Pay for your lover's gas. She stepped forward, face pale. Wait, what are you doing here? You, where have you been? We thought. Dead. I finished. Yeah, that was the idea. Easier to disappear than to keep playing house in your twisted little drama. Marcus narrowed his eyes. Who the hell is this? Lauren didn't answer. Just stood there shaking. Her mouth moved, but no sound came out. I turned to Marcus. You remember me, don't you? I'm the guy who raised your kids, paid their tuition, covered your mess. He stepped forward, puffing his chest like a peacock with half its feathers missing. You need to back off, man. I laughed. Or what? You'll limp toward me aggressively? Go ahead, Marcus. Take a swing. Let's see if you've still got anything left. He didn't. Lauren grabbed his arm. Stop, she hissed. I looked at her one last time. I came here for lentils. Didn't expect to find poverty and karma on the same aisle. She opened her mouth. Maybe to beg. Maybe to curse. I don't know. I didn't wait to find out. As I walked away, Jonah looked up at me. His eyes were confused, maybe a little scared. And for the briefest moment, I almost felt something break again. But then I remembered that phone call. Her voice laughing. Her lies. My mother's betrayal. The 3 toothbrushes. And I kept walking. No words. No explanations. Just a ghost passing through the past. I didn't expect to hear from her. Not after everything. But the day after the grocery store face-off, my phone buzzed with a number I hadn't seen in 10 years. Mom. I let it ring. Once. Twice. I could have ignored it. I should have. But there was something about that name on my screen, that quiet betrayal wrapped in a soft, maternal tone that I needed to face. I answered. Didn't say a word. Blake. Her voice cracked. It's me. Silence. She waited, then whispered, Are you okay? I almost laughed. Was I okay? After she helped lie to me for over a decade? After she knew those kids weren't mine and still told me to be a man and hold the family together? You don't get to ask that, I finally said. You lost that right when you picked her. I didn't pick anyone, she said quickly. I was protecting the family. No, Mom. You were protecting her. You knew the truth and let me raise kids that weren't mine. You let me look like a fool. You held my hand at the hospital when Ava was born and told me she had my eyes, and you knew she didn't. She started crying. The soft kind. The one meant to make me feel guilty. It used to work. Not anymore. I thought she'd come clean, she sobbed. I thought, maybe you'd forgive her. That she'd stop. So you gave her more time to dig the knife in deeper. I took a breath. My hands were shaking. You know what that makes you, Mom? Not just a liar, but an accomplice. She didn't speak. Just breathed heavy into the receiver. Do you even know what that did to me? I couldn't sleep for months. I thought I was the reason she was distant. I thought maybe if I tried harder, she'd come back to me. While you both sat there and watched me break. She said you were happy. She said a lot of things, didn't she? I snapped. Tell me, Mom, was it worth it? Was your precious daughter-in-law worth burning your own son for? She sobbed harder now, trying to form words. I didn't know it would go that far. Don't lie to me. Not again. There was a long pause. Then she said something I didn't expect. She left Marcus. He walked out 2 years ago. Took everything. She's been struggling ever since. Good, I said without hesitation. Maybe now she knows what it feels like to be left in the ashes. She's been trying to reach you. I don't care. She wants to apologize. Too late. My voice was calm, like ice. But inside, I could still feel it, that final thread snapping loose. This was the last connection. The final piece of the old life still trying to drag me back. Blake, please. Don't shut me out forever. I'm still your mother. No, I said quietly. You were my mother. Now you're just a woman who stood on the wrong side of history. I hung up, blocked the number. That night, I poured myself a drink and sat by the window of my penthouse. The skyline glowed with the kind of silence only the rich can afford. I didn't feel peace. Not yet. But for the first time in 10 years, I felt distance, like the wound had finally scabbed over. And once that scab hardens, I'll tear it off myself. It was bound to happen. I knew it the second she saw me at the grocery store. She'd come crawling back. 2 weeks later, I found her. Or rather, she found me. Standing outside my office building in Midtown, wearing a beige coat 2 sizes too big and heels that had seen better years. Her makeup was smudged like she'd tried to cover the past, but forgot its stains deeper than foundation ever could. Blake. I stepped out of my car, nodded to my driver, and kept walking. Didn't slow down. Didn't speak. But she chased me. Please. Just a minute. She grabbed my arm. Security moved, but I raised a hand. I looked at her. Really looked. She was thinner. Hair darker, probably dyed in a kitchen sink. Cheekbones sharper. That youthful glow gone. It was almost poetic. The same woman who once turned heads in every room now looked like a ghost of her own arrogance. You've made your point, she said, voice trembling. You're rich. You're powerful. You're living the life. I raised an eyebrow. And you're not. She flinched. I came to say I'm sorry, she said. I was stupid. I was selfish. I ruined everything. True. She blinked, caught off guard by the bluntness. Then, like clockwork, the crocodile tears came out. I thought you were gone forever, she sniffled. When I saw you in that store, it was like seeing a ghost. Good, I said coldly. Because I am a ghost. The man you married is dead. You killed him slowly over 13 years with every lie, every late-night phone call, every time you looked me in the eye and told me you loved me, with his kids under my roof. Her mouth trembled. I didn't mean to. Stop. I cut her off. Don't you dare insult me with that line. You meant every choice, every hotel room, every call, every time you let me hold a child that wasn't mine and smile like it was some inside joke. I paid for it, she whispered. Marcus left. He took everything. I lost the house, the car. I'm working 2 jobs now. You want sympathy? I sneered. Sell that to someone who didn't spend a decade funding your fantasy life. She stepped closer. I'm not asking for money. I swear. I miss you. I let out a dry laugh. No, Lauren. You miss the version of me who didn't know the truth. The one you could manipulate. The fool. You don't miss me. You miss what I used to give you. Her lip quivered. Do you ever think about the kids? I stepped into her space, dropped my voice. I think about how I tucked them in while you were getting touched by another man. I think about how they're walking around thinking a liar is their hero. And I think about how, one day, they'll learn what you did. She stepped back like I'd slapped her. You really hate me that much? I shrugged. No, I don't feel hate. I don't feel anything for you anymore. Then I leaned closer. But if you think for 1 second you can claw your way back into my life because you saw a suit and a building with my name on it, you're more delusional than I thought. I turned to leave. Blake, she called after me. You can't erase everything. You loved me once. I looked back just once. Yeah, and I used to love Santa Claus too. I walked through the lobby without looking back. Her reflection faded in the glass behind me. And for the first time in years, I felt nothing but clarity. I used to think betrayal was the worst thing that could happen to a man. It's not. The worst thing? Letting betrayal define you. You see, after Lauren walked back into my life, or tried to, I didn't feel the rage I expected. I didn't want to scream or destroy something. I just felt free. Because when a person shows you who they are, and you finally believe them, there's peace in that clarity. I moved on. Not with another woman. Not yet. With myself. For the first time in over a decade, I was living for me. I traveled without having to report back to someone who didn't care where I went. I built businesses not to provide for a family that wasn't mine, but because I wanted to. I looked in the mirror and didn't see a victim. I saw a man who lost everything fake and found something real, himself. People started asking about my story, how I disappeared, how I came back richer, colder, smarter. I never gave them the full version. Not until now. And if there's a man reading this who's ever looked at his partner and felt that gut punch of doubt, that little whisper in the back of his head, something's wrong, then hear me clearly. Trust your instincts. We've been trained to ignore them, to be strong, to keep the peace, to fix the problem. But sometimes, the problem isn't yours to fix. Sometimes, you're the one being bled dry. I used to think love meant sacrifice. And sure, it does. But it doesn't mean self-destruction. It doesn't mean killing yourself slowly so someone else can live a lie more comfortably. Lauren taught me that. And oddly, I'm thankful. Not because of what she did, but because of what it forced me to become. A man with boundaries. A man with power. A man who doesn't beg for love, who commands respect. The truth is, some people don't want a partner. They want a host. And once they've taken enough, your time, your money, your soul, they'll find a new one. So to every man who's giving his all to a woman who only gives back half, stop. Pull back. Watch her. Not with suspicion, with awareness. Is she your peace or your poison? Because if she's the latter, don't waste a decade like I did. Walk. Run if you have to. Burn the bridge and don't leave breadcrumbs. Let her feel what it's like to lose something real. Let her stand in a grocery store one day, holding dented beans and broken dreams, while you walk by in silence, dressed in success, dripping with indifference. And most of all, let yourself be the comeback story. Not for revenge, but because it's the best middle finger you'll ever raise. I've lived it. I've survived it. And I've thrived beyond it. So no, I don't hate Lauren anymore. She's just another chapter. But I'm the whole damn book. I never imagined I'd walk into hell disguised as a 5-star restaurant. But there I was, seated at a dimly lit corner table, my fingers wrapped around a whiskey glass, listening to the sound of my downfall happening 3 tables away. Ugh, Jason's still a secretary? The voice was hers. Emily. My wife, or at least, the woman I thought she was. A chorus of laughter followed. Then a man's voice, deep and arrogant. Brandon. Her new husband. Her upgrade. Come on, babe, he said, smug and loud enough for half the restaurant to hear. Let him live his little office fantasy. Some men aren't built for success. My jaw clenched. My fingers dug into the wood of the table. If only they knew. If only they knew who I really was. Because Jason Carter wasn't just some lowly secretary. He wasn't some pitiful ex-husband still crying over his cheating wife. Jason Carter was the CEO. The CEO of the very company they were about to beg for a $100 million contract. And tomorrow, they'd find out. But before we get to that moment, before the delicious satisfaction of justice, let me take you back to where it all began. To the moment my world fell apart. To the moment I found out that Emily Carter was a liar, a fraud, and the worst mistake of my life. It started with a scent. Not just any scent, his scent. Expensive cologne, the kind that clung to silk ties and sweaty skin after a long night of doing things you weren't supposed to. I smelled it on Emily's dress when she walked past me in the hallway, completely oblivious to the fact that I was paying attention. Late meeting ran over, she muttered, not even looking at me. I nodded, pretending to believe her. But something inside me tightened. Emily never had late meetings. And even if she did, she never came home with that look, the one that screamed guilt disguised as exhaustion. I let it slide. That was my first mistake. The second mistake was ignoring the phone. It was just sitting there on the bathroom counter, her screen lighting up as I walked by. A text message. Can't stop thinking about tonight. Same time tomorrow. My stomach twisted. I picked up the phone, my hands shaking, scrolling through messages that confirmed everything I didn't want to believe. Brandon. It had been him for months. The late meetings, the sudden interest in self-care weekends, the extra gym sessions. I should have seen it. I should have seen it. When she came out of the shower, towel wrapped around her body, hair dripping, I was still holding her phone. What's this? I asked, my voice deathly calm. Her eyes flickered to the screen, and in that split second, I saw it, the hesitation, the panic, the gears turning in her head as she calculated the best way to lie her way out of it. Oh my God, Jason, are you serious? She scoffed, rolling her eyes. You're snooping through my phone now? I didn't say anything. She snatched it out of my hand, shaking her head like I was the one in the wrong. You're being ridiculous. Brandon's just a friend. We were talking about work stuff. I let out a short, bitter laugh. Work stuff? Right. You mean like how he can't stop thinking about tonight? For a split second, she faltered. Then, just like that, she was on the attack. Oh, so now I'm not allowed to have male friends, she snapped. Do you even hear yourself? You're acting like some insecure little boy. I should have yelled. I should have raged. But all I did was stare. Because that was the moment I knew. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't ashamed. She wasn't even trying to come up with a good excuse. Emily Carter was a liar. A cheat. And the worst part? She didn't even respect me enough to pretend otherwise. I clenched my jaw. My mind was already spinning. How long? Where? How many times? But in the end, none of it mattered. Because the woman standing in front of me, the woman I had built a life with, wasn't mine anymore. Maybe she never had been. And that realization? That was the moment Jason Carter died. The old Jason, anyway. The new one? The new one was about to make them both regret everything. Emily stood there, towel slipping slightly, arms crossed, waiting for me to break. She wanted me to lash out, to scream, to beg for an explanation so she could twist it into my fault. That was her game. Manipulation, gaslighting, anything to avoid responsibility. But I wasn't playing. I stepped past her, slow, deliberate. She let out an annoyed sigh, probably thinking I was being dramatic or immature. She had no idea I was already making my next move. Fine, she said, rolling her eyes. Give me the silent treatment. Real mature, Jason. I grabbed my keys. I'll be back. Where are you going? I didn't answer. Just walked out, shutting the door behind me. The second I was in my car, I let the mask slip. My hands gripped the wheel, white-knuckled, my breath coming sharp and uneven. Betrayal didn't hit you all at once. It seeped in, twisting like a knife. Memories flooded back. Late nights waiting for her to come home. The way she'd laugh at her phone, quickly locking the screen when I got too close. The sudden disinterest in me. I had given her everything, and she had given herself to him. I drove aimlessly, mind racing. I could have confronted Brandon right then, could have gone straight to his place and knocked him flat on his smug, cheating face. But that was too easy, too predictable. No, I needed proof. Cold, undeniable proof. The kind that would destroy every excuse she had. So, I did what any man in my position would do. I called in a favor. One of my closest friends, Matt, worked in private security. He didn't ask many questions, just got things done. When I called and told him I needed someone followed, he didn't hesitate. Send me the details, he said. I'll get you everything you need. By the next evening, I had more than enough. Photos. Timestamps. Even a video of Emily stepping out of a hotel, adjusting her dress while Brandon followed close behind. She didn't even look guilty. Didn't even care. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at my ceiling, feeling everything and nothing at the same time. I wasn't just angry. I was done. The next morning, I packed a bag. Emily barely noticed, too busy on her phone, probably texting him. When I reached the door, she finally looked up. "Where are you going?" I turned to her, calm, unreadable. "Out," I said. "For how long?" she pressed, frowning like I was inconveniencing her. "For as long as I feel like." She scoffed. "God, you're so dramatic. If this is about that stupid text, I already told you." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because she really thought I was still that stupid. That week, she had no idea. No idea that I wasn't just walking out of that door, I was walking out of her life. And when she finally realized it, it would already be too late. Days passed, and I didn't answer her calls. At first, she tried playing the concerned wife, leaving voicemails about how she was worried and how we needed to talk things through. Then, when I didn't bite, she switched tactics. "You're being childish, Jason," one message sneered. "Running away doesn't change anything. Grow up." Then came the guilt tripping. "You're really gonna throw away everything we built? Over nothing?" Nothing. That's what she called it. And just like that, any lingering doubt, any small part of me that wanted to believe she regretted what she did, disappeared. I focused on my work, on my empire. Because what Emily never knew, what she never cared to notice, was that I had been building something much bigger than she ever imagined. She thought I was just some secretary working a dead-end job, barely scraping by. That's what I let her believe. In reality, I was the owner, the silent force behind one of the fastest-growing investment firms in the country. I had built it from the ground up, keeping my name off everything, letting others take the public credit while I pulled the strings. Why? Because power was best wielded in secret. And soon, Emily and her new boy toy would feel just how much power I had. The day it all came crashing down on them started like any other. I was in my office when Matt called. "You're gonna love this," he said, amusement clear in his voice. "Hit me. Guess who just walked into the boardroom, ready to close a $100 million deal with your company?" I leaned back, smiling for the first time in weeks. "Let me guess. Brandon and his lovely, conniving wife." I chuckled. Of course. Emily, always so confident, so sure of herself, probably thinking she had one. She had no idea that the CEO they were about to beg for a signature was the same pathetic secretary she had been mocking just nights before. "Send them in," I said. And then I sat back and waited. Because today was the day I got my revenge. The doors swung open, and they walked in like they owned the place. Brandon, all smug confidence, his overpriced suit stretched over a frame that thought hitting the gym 3 times a week made him powerful. Emily, right beside him, her hand resting on his arm, wearing the kind of dress that screamed I upgraded. I didn't stand right away. I let them walk closer, let them see only the back of my chair, my fingers tapping lazily against the polished wood of the conference table. Brandon was too focused on impressing the board members to notice me at first. He cleared his throat, flashing that practiced CEO smile. "Gentlemen, I know we've been going back and forth on this, but I think today we can finalize this deal. We're looking forward to a very profitable partnership." Emily nodded, her eyes scanning the room. "This is the best decision for both parties," she chimed in, her voice dripping with fake polish and charm. I smiled. She still hadn't noticed. Brandon pulled out the contract and slid it forward. "Now, if we can just get your CEO's signature, we can make this official." Silence. Then, slowly, I turned my chair. Emily's eyes met mine, and everything stopped. For a full 3 seconds, her expression didn't change. Her brain refused to process what was in front of her. But then, recognition. Her face paled. Her mouth opened slightly, like she wanted to speak but couldn't find the words. Brandon, oblivious, kept talking. "We're expecting great things from," and he saw where she was looking. He followed her gaze. Right to me. His smile vanished. "You," he muttered. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table. "Good to see you again, Brandon." My voice was calm, measured. I wanted him to feel it, the weight of what was about to happen. Emily swallowed hard, recovering faster than him. "Jason, what are you doing here?" Her voice wobbled just slightly. She was already trying to put the pieces together. I tilted my head. "Oh, you mean in my office?" "At my company." I let that sink in before delivering the final blow. "As the CEO?" Brandon's face drained of all color. No, that's not. There must be some mistake. I gestured toward the contract. You wanted the CEO's signature, right? I picked up the pen, turning it over in my fingers. Well, you're looking at him. Silence. Absolute, perfect silence. Emily's breathing hitched. She wasn't stupid. She was realizing, all at once, how badly she had miscalculated. Brandon, on the other hand, tried to recover. He straightened, forcing a laugh. Well, I guess congratulations are in order. You must have recently been promoted. I smiled. Oh no, I founded this company years ago. I let the words hang between us before adding, guess Emily never mentioned that, huh? His jaw clenched. He turned to her, his voice tight. You told me he was just a secretary. Emily looked at me with something I had never seen from her before, fear. I leaned back in my chair. Now, about that contract. I picked up the papers, flipping through them lazily. $100 million is a lot of money. I assume you'd want me to trust the people I'm doing business with. My eyes flicked to Emily. Trust is important, don't you think? She flinched. Brandon cleared his throat. Look, Jason, let's be professional here. This deal is good for both our companies. His voice was shaking now. He knew he was losing. I tapped the pen against the table. You're right. Business is business. Then I grinned. But see, I have a strict policy. I let the tension build. I could see the sweat forming at Brandon's hairline. The way Emily gripped his arm tighter, nails digging into his sleeve. I don't do business with snakes. And then, without breaking eye contact, I ripped the contract in half. Brandon's mouth dropped open. Emily let out a small, strangled gasp. You Brandon started, his voice rising. Do you have any idea what you're doing? Oh, I do, I said, standing up. I'm making sure neither of you ever gets a dime from me. Ever. Emily's mask slipped. Jason, wait. I turned my back on them, walking toward the door. Before I left, I glanced over my shoulder. Enjoy your new life, Emily. I smirked. Oh, and Brandon? He swallowed. I winked. Try to keep an eye on your wife's phone. And with that, I walked out, leaving them in the ruins of their own betrayal. The second I stepped out of that room, I felt it, the weight lifting. Months of lies, of second-guessing myself, of wondering if I had been the problem. It all burned away in that moment. Emily and Brandon had played their little game, convinced they were winning. But they didn't know they were sitting at my table, playing by my rules. I walked down the hallway, passing employees who had no idea their boss had just shredded a $100 million deal for revenge. Matt was waiting near the elevators, arms crossed, grinning. Man, I wish you let me record that. I chuckled, feeling the tension finally leave my body. Their faces were enough. He smirked. So, what now? Now? That was a damn good question. For the first time in years, I had nothing tying me down. No wife waiting at home. No toxic relationship draining the life out of me. I was free. But I wasn't done yet. You still got those guys at the finance department? I asked. Matt's grin widened. Oh yeah. You want me to dig? I nodded. Every dirty detail. I want to know exactly how deep Brandon's debts go. How many investors are counting on this deal to save his ass? Matt clapped a hand on my shoulder. This is gonna be fun. I stepped into the elevator, exhaling slowly. The doors slid shut, and as I watched my reflection in the mirrored walls, I realized something. I wasn't the man Emily had left. I was someone far more dangerous. And she was about to find out just how bad she screwed up. The fallout came faster than I expected. By the next morning, Matt had everything on Brandon. The guy was drowning in debt, barely keeping his company afloat. That $100 million deal? It wasn't just a big contract. It was the only thing standing between him and complete financial ruin. Without it, Brandon was finished. I sat in my office, sipping my coffee, scrolling through the reports Matt sent over. Emily had really traded down. She left a man who had built an empire in secret for a fraud barely holding his business together. And now, they were both sinking. Right on cue, my phone buzzed. Emily. I smirked and let it ring. She tried again. And again. By the fourth call, I finally picked up. Jason, she breathed, her voice soft, like she thought she could still play me. We need to talk. I leaned back in my chair, twirling a pen between my fingers. Oh? About what? A pause. About yesterday. I didn't say anything. Just let the silence stretch until she finally cracked. Look, I know you're upset, she continued, switching tactics. But let's be mature about this. You had no right to sabotage Brandon's deal like that. I chuckled. There it was. She wasn't calling to apologize. She was calling to blame me. I had no right? I repeated, amused. That's funny. I don't remember either of you having a problem taking advantage of me when you thought I was just a secretary. Emily let out a frustrated sigh. Jason, don't be petty. You owe me a conversation at least. I don't owe you, I cut in, my voice turning cold. I gave you years of my life, and you threw them away like they meant nothing. Now you want to talk? Now that your little safety net is gone. Jason, please, she whispered. Brandon's company, it's in trouble. He needs this deal. I grinned. There it was. She wasn't calling for closure. She wasn't calling because she regretted what she did. She was calling because she was scared. She had left me, mocked me, betrayed me, and now, when she needed help, I was supposed to save her? I let out a slow breath. Let me make something clear, Emily. Whatever happens to you and Brandon, I don't care. Jason. I hung up, and just like that, she was nothing to me. But the show wasn't over. Matt texted me 2 hours later. Brandon's investors just found out about the failed deal. Panic mode activated. He's trying to set up a meeting with new backers. Should I make that difficult? I smiled. It was time to make sure Brandon lost everything. Brandon's downfall was like watching a slow-motion car crash. Painful, inevitable, and absolutely satisfying. By the end of the week, his company was in freefall. Investors were pulling out left and right. Rumors spread like wildfire, whispers of mismanagement, debts, failed deals. And me? I just sat back and enjoyed the show. Emily tried calling a few more times, but I didn't bother answering. She sent texts instead, switching between begging and accusing. Jason, please. I just want to talk. We can fix this. You're being cruel. You were never like this before. Is this really who you become? I laughed at that one. Who I'd become? No, Emily. This was who I'd been all along. I had just wasted too much time pretending otherwise. Matt kept feeding me updates, and each one was better than the last. By Monday, Brandon was desperate. He had one last meeting lined up, one final chance to keep his company from collapsing. A meeting with one of my subsidiaries. He had no idea. I made sure of it. The morning of the meeting, I arrived at the office early. The trap was set. My people were ready. Brandon walked in, trying to play it cool, but I could see it in his face. He knew this was his last shot. Emily was with him. She looked different. The confidence she carried before was gone. She wasn't smiling. Her makeup was perfect, her dress expensive, but her eyes? Desperate. I let them sit in the waiting room for 30 minutes. Let them sweat. Then, finally, I had my assistant call them in. They stepped into the boardroom, expecting to meet some unknown executive. And instead, they saw me. Brandon stopped dead in his tracks. Emily gasped. No. I leaned back in my chair, clasping my hands in front of me. Surprised. Brandon's mouth opened, then shut. His eyes darted to Emily, realizing, too late, that she had never told him who actually owned this company. She looked sick. I gestured to the seat across from me. Go ahead, Brandon. Pitch me. His jaw clenched. This isn't funny, Jason. I raised an eyebrow. Who's joking? You wanted an investment, right? I smirked. Convince me. I could see it. The rage, the humiliation. He didn't want to beg me for anything, but he had no choice. So he did what cowards do. He swallowed his pride and started talking. His pitch was terrible. Rushed, sloppy. I barely listened. Instead, I watched Emily. She wasn't looking at him. She was looking at me. And for the first time, I saw it in her eyes. Regret. I let Brandon finish. Then, I exhaled and stood up. Thanks for your time, I said. But I'm not interested. Brandon's eyes widened. You didn't even. I cut him off with a smirk. I just wanted to see you crawl. He turned bright red. You piece of... I didn't even acknowledge him. Instead, I turned to Emily. You made your choice, I said quietly. And now, you get to live with it. She didn't speak. Didn't argue. Just stood there, realizing that the man she thought would save her was just as screwed as she was. And me? I walked out of that room. A free man. The aftermath was glorious. Brandon's company collapsed within 2 weeks. Investors sued, his assets were frozen, and his reputation? Destroyed. The media feasted on the story, a once promising entrepreneur drowning in debt, betrayed by his own arrogance. Emily? She vanished. No more calls. No more texts. But I knew she wasn't gone for good. Not yet. And sure enough, a month later, it happened. I was leaving the office late when I saw her. standing by my car, arms crossed, dressed in something a little too tight, a little too desperate. I almost laughed. She had that same fake sweetness in her eyes, the one she used when she wanted something. But this time, it wasn't working. Jason, she breathed, stepping closer. Can we talk? I leaned against the car, arms crossed. Talk? I repeated, amused. You had a lot to say when you were laughing at me in that restaurant. What changed? She bit her lip, shifting. I made a mistake. I smirked. No S star dot. She exhaled sharply. I didn't mean to hurt you. I thought, she swallowed. I thought I wanted something different. But he wasn't. He wasn't you. I raised an eyebrow. You mean he wasn't rich? Her face twisted at that, but she didn't deny it. I let out a short laugh, shaking my head. You're unbelievable. Jason, please. She grabbed my arm, her fingers soft, her voice syrupy sweet. I miss you. I miss us. I stared at her for a long moment. And then, I laughed in her face. It wasn't a chuckle. It was a full, deep, uncontrollable laugh. The kind that made her eyes widen in shock, her cheeks flush with embarrassment. You actually think I'd take you back? I said, still grinning. After everything? Jason, we had years together, she whispered. That has to mean something. I leaned in close, just enough for her to hope. Then I smiled. It means I wasted my time. Her face crumbled. I pulled my arm from her grip, unlocked my car, and got in. Before I drove off, I rolled down the window and gave her one last look. Enjoy your new life, Emily. I smirked. Hope it was worth it. Then, I drove away, and for the first time in years, I felt free. I was sitting in a conference room in Dallas, pitching a software package to a medical firm. I'd flown in that morning, running on 2 hours of sleep and a black coffee, trying to land the biggest client of the year. My phone buzzed in my pocket, unknown number. I let it go the first time, then again, and again. On the fourth call, I excused myself, stepped into the hallway, and picked up. Hey, the voice said. I recognized it immediately. My wife, Rebecca. Cold. Flat. Then she laughed, not nervously, not shyly, it was full-on amusement. I'm divorcing you, she said like she was ordering a damn pizza. And I've already sold our apartment. Starting a new life with my boyfriend. Good luck finding a place to live. I paused. Everything in my body froze except my hand gripping the phone. I stared at the glass wall reflecting my own stunned face. Sounds good, I said, as calmly as if she told me to pick up milk on the way home. She chuckled. Didn't expect that, huh? Click. No emotion. No hesitation. Just cruelty in stereo. I stood there in silence for a full minute, trying to remember how to breathe. I walked back into the room, finished the meeting like nothing happened. My heart was collapsing, but my voice held steady. Professional. Unbreakable. The next morning, I caught the first flight back to San Diego. I didn't call her. Didn't text. I wanted to see it for myself. When I opened the door to our apartment, my apartment, I could hear music playing. Not our usual playlist. Something trashy, like a teen party soundtrack. I walked in, and there she was. Wearing a silk robe I bought her in Italy, sitting cross-legged on the couch like a smug little queen. Nails painted red, drink in hand, phone in the other. She looked up and smirked like she'd been waiting for this showdown. Oh, she said, blinking slow. You're early. Her smile, that arrogant little smile, disappeared the moment she noticed I wasn't panicking. I put my keys on the counter like it was just another Tuesday. How much did you get for the apartment? She shrugged. Enough to make sure I never see your boring face again. Cool, I nodded. Hope you told your little boyfriend about the second mortgage. That wiped the grin clean off her face. You idiot, she hissed. You're bluffing. I stepped closer. Check the drawer in the study. The papers are there. You signed them last year without reading, remember? You were busy binge-watching your true crime, obsession, and clicking through bikini pages on Instagram. That hit her ego like a punch. She stood up, face red, robe slipping off one shoulder. You piece of garbage. You always think you're so smart. You're not. You were just a paycheck I had to tolerate. Do you know how hard it was to fake those moans for 4 years? I didn't blink. Did your boyfriend know you screamed my name last weekend? Or were those fake too? She threw the glass at the wall. It shattered just behind me. I smiled. Temper, temper. Then the door opened. He walked in. Her new life. Chad. Yep, that was his real name. Backward cap, vape in hand, barely 25, wearing a hoodie that said CEO of nothing. I looked him in the eye. You must be the upgrade. Rebecca rushed to him like I was the one who needed protecting. Get out, Ryan, she snapped. This is our home now. You sold it, I said. But you forgot the fine print. I still have access until the transfer is finalized. Which means I can sit here, take a nap, even take a dump in your new shared toilet. Chad looked confused. Wait, I thought. She glared at him. Shut up, babe. I stepped toward the door. Before leaving, I looked back one last time. Oh, and by the way, I added, the money from the sale? It's frozen. Fraud investigation. Good luck starting your new life with that. Then I left. I didn't go to a hotel. I didn't go to a friend's place. I went to the storage unit I secretly rented last month. Just in case. Because deep down, I knew. I knew this woman, the same one who used to stroke my hair and whisper lies in the dark, had claws hidden under every smile. I just didn't expect her to use them this soon, this sharp, and this proudly. But this war? It had only just begun. I sat in my car for over an hour outside that storage unit, just staring at the steering wheel. Not crying, not yelling, just silent. The kind of silence that feels like you're underwater and everything around you is muffled and surreal. Her voice echoed in my head on loop. I'm divorcing you. I've already sold our apartment, starting a new life with my boyfriend. And that laugh, that damn laugh, like I was some kind of joke, like I never mattered. Like 4 years of marriage was just a waiting room until something better came along in a sleeveless hoodie and cologne from a gas station. I finally walked into the unit. Inside were 3 bags, a mattress, a folded chair, and a mini fridge I kept stocked out of paranoia. I'd packed it all when the gut feeling became too heavy to ignore, when she started staying out late at yoga, when she laughed a little too loud at texts she'd hide like top-secret files. I'd wanted to believe it was nothing, that maybe she was going through something, that I was just being paranoid. Turns out, paranoia is just early awareness. It's the brain noticing what the heart refuses to see. I tried sleeping, but the rage wouldn't let me. My mind played back every moment that now felt like a lie. The vacations. The nights in bed where she said she couldn't sleep without my arms around her. The promises. I kept wondering, was he already in the picture when she said she wanted to reconnect with herself? Was that why she started waxing again, wearing perfume to run errands? Was that why she changed her phone password? Around 3 a.m., I got up and drove back to the apartment. I parked across the street, turned off the lights, and watched the window. They were still awake. I could see her silhouette dancing, laughing. She looked free, like she'd been set loose after years of pretending. But the worst part wasn't that she looked happy. The worst part was realizing that I didn't miss her. I missed the version of her that only existed in my head. I waited until the lights went off. Then I snuck in. Yeah, I still had the key. I didn't go there to destroy anything. I just wanted to see what she left behind. What wasn't worth taking? Turned out, a lot. She left our wedding album in a box labeled junk. She left the sweater I gave her our first Christmas, the one she used to never take off. She left a pair of earrings she cried over because they reminded her of her mom. And she left the scrapbook we made after our trip to Aspen, where she said, "This is the happiest I've ever been." I took it all, not out of nostalgia, not because I cared, but because I wanted to be the one to throw it away. Not her. Me. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, she called again. This time, her tone was different. Not apologetic, that would have been too human for her. But careful, calculated. I need to talk to you about some legal things, she said. I said nothing. Ryan, don't be a child. You can't just disappear. We need to finalize the documents. I could hear her boyfriend laughing in the background, making some dumb joke. She didn't even bother muting the phone. Was that him? I asked calmly. She laughed again. Jealous. I breathed in slow. No. Just wondering how it feels to downgrade from a man to a mistake. That hit her. F. You, she spat. I hung up. I didn't care about the apartment anymore. Or the documents. Or even her explanations. I cared about getting back to myself. To the man I used to be before I gave every ounce of my soul to someone who was already planning her exit strategy. But then, the twist. 2 days later, I got a call from my bank. Someone tried to empty one of our joint savings accounts, the one I'd forgotten even existed. I'd left it untouched for years, like a side pot for emergencies. $13,500. Gone. Or almost gone. The transaction was flagged because the signature didn't match. Guess who? She really thought she could take everything. My heart, my home, and now my money. I didn't say a word to her. I just forwarded the bank's fraud report to my lawyer and waited. That evening, I drove past the apartment again, just to see, and as I parked, I saw them. Outside. Yelling. She was screaming at Chad, throwing something at his chest. He stormed off down the street. She stood there in her pajamas, barefoot, arms crossed, looking like she just realized her new life came with consequences. For a second, she looked up and spotted me. I didn't look away. She walked toward the car, real slow. Knocked on the window. I rolled it down 2 inches. "You think you're so smart," she hissed. "You think you won." I stared at her. "No," I said. "I think I finally woke up." Then I rolled the window back up and drove away. But that was far from the end. The next few days were a strange blur. I wasn't sad anymore, not in the way I expected. The grief had calcified into something else. Cold. Focused. Every morning, I woke up without checking my phone for her messages. Every evening, I didn't wait for the sound of her keys at the door. It was like I'd been unhooked from some twisted machine that had been draining me for years. But then, out of nowhere, her sister Melanie called me. We hadn't spoken in months. Last time we talked was Thanksgiving, and even then, it was small talk about pumpkin pie and Black Friday deals. So when I saw her name flash on my screen, I nearly didn't answer. "Ryan," she said, voice shaky. I didn't know who else to call. "I just found out what Rebecca did. She told Mom and Dad you cheated on her." I couldn't even fake surprise. "Of course she did," I said. Wouldn't be on brand if she didn't rewrite the whole story with herself as the victim. Melanie sighed. "They believe her. She said you hit her once. That you were controlling. That you drained the bank account." I pulled the phone away and laughed. A hard, joyless laugh. "She's setting the stage," I muttered. Planning her next act. Melanie was quiet for a moment. She asked me if I knew anyone who could get her a quick marriage certificate overseas. "She's talking about moving to Costa Rica with that guy. Said she's done with this country." That caught me off guard. "She's serious?" Melanie hesitated. "I don't know. But listen, she also told Chad that you were stalking her. That if anything happened, it would be you." That's when I realized what she was doing. She wasn't just trying to ruin me financially or emotionally, she was covering her trail. Preparing for something worse. I hung up and called my lawyer. We spent the next few hours gathering every message, email, and bank statement. I filed a restraining order against her. I needed it on record that I wasn't the threat. Because deep down, I had a sick feeling she was planning something desperate. 2 nights later, I got my confirmation. Around midnight, someone tried to break into the storage unit. The latch was busted, the door slightly open. Nothing was missing, but there was a folded note left on top of the mattress. It said, in handwriting I knew too well, "This doesn't end until you say sorry." I laughed. Say sorry? To her? For what, not being blind enough? I reported it. The cops said without cameras or fingerprints, there wasn't much they could do. But it was enough to leave a record. Enough to show a pattern. The next day, I showed up at her new place with a sheriff. They served her with the order. She tried to act confused, then outraged, then heartbroken. She cried on the doorstep, in front of the neighbors, screaming, "He's ruining my life." I leaned in, just close enough for her to hear me. "You ruined your own life the second you thought I wouldn't fight back." And for the first time, she looked scared. Not because I threatened her. I never raised a hand, never even raised my voice. But because she saw it in my eyes. I was done being her doormat. Done playing nice while she played dirty. And people like her? They're only powerful when you let them think you need them. She backed away and slammed the door. I stood there for a moment, breathing in the silence. I was free. But freedom, I was learning, isn't just walking away. It's watching the fire she lit burn her own damn house down. And never needing to throw a single match. A week passed without a word from her. No calls, no messages, no drama. It felt like the eye of the storm. Quiet, but heavy. I knew her too well. Rebecca didn't go quiet because she gave up. She went quiet because she was planning. I started rebuilding. I met with a real estate agent and started looking at condos. Small, simple, clean. I picked one with big windows and no memories. I signed the lease the same day and moved in with nothing but 3 suitcases and the laptop I'd used to build our entire business. My business now. She had nothing to do with it, despite how she used to brag at dinner parties that she was co-founder. She wasn't even admin on the company email. Still, I kept one eye open. Paranoia isn't always paranoia when you're dealing with someone who thrives on chaos. Then one night, while I was settling and organizing books, setting up the TV, my phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it. Then I answered, "Hey, it's Chad." That voice, nervous, shaky, not cocky like before. "What the hell do you want?" Listen. I know I shouldn't be calling you, but I don't know who else to talk to." I left her. I sat down. "Why are you telling me this?" He exhaled. "Because she's crazy, man. Like, actually dangerous. She smashed my laptop last night because she thought I was texting another girl. It was my sister. And she's been talking about faking an injury, saying you hit her. Like, full on trying to set you up." I closed my eyes. There it was. "I'm not surprised," I said. "I warned you." "She said if I talk to you, she'll ruin my life," he said. "But I can't do this." I moved out. She's losing it. Screaming at herself in the mirror. Drinking every night. Talking to people who aren't there. I let the silence hang before I replied. "She'll come for you next. Don't say I didn't warn you." "She already did," he whispered. "She sent my mom screenshots of fake messages between me and some OnlyFans girl. Made it look like I was cheating. My mom won't even talk to me now." I almost felt bad for the kid. Almost. "Cleaned your hands of it," I said. "And pray she doesn't know your social security number." I hung up. That night, I changed all my passwords again. Set up two-factor on everything. Froze my credit. Just in case. I thought that would be it. That maybe she'd spiral out, burn through her bridges, and eventually disappear into some sad Instagram account where she reposted quotes about healing and rebirth while drinking herself into oblivion. But then, she showed up. Middle of the day. My new condo. I opened the door to grab a package, and there she was, standing 2 feet away, smiling like the devil in red lipstick. "Nice place," she said. "A little sterile, but fitting." I didn't answer. Just stared. "You didn't think I'd find you?" She tilted her head. "You always underestimate me." "I'm calling the cops," I said. She rolled her eyes. "Oh, please." "What, for standing on a public walkway?" I stepped inside and closed the door. Locked it. Pulled down the blinds. And for the first time, I felt something unexpected. Pity. Not because she was broken, she'd always been broken, but because she still thought she had power. I watched her through the peephole. She stood there for a minute, like she was expecting something. Then she walked away. The next morning, I got an email from an unknown address. Subject line: "Miss me yet?" Inside was a single photo. Me. Sleeping. In my new apartment. Taken from outside the window. No words. No threat. Just the picture. I felt my chest tighten. My first instinct was to get angry. But instead, I saved the photo, sent it to my lawyer, and then to the detective I'd spoken to weeks ago. She wanted me to break, but I wouldn't. Because the truth is, Rebecca wasn't the first liar I'd dealt with in my life, but she was the last one I'd ever let close enough to hurt me. The detective called me back within an hour. "She's testing you," he said, "seeing how far she can push. People like her don't stop until someone pushes back harder." "I already have a restraining order," I replied, pacing across the hardwood floors. "What else can I do?" "We'll escalate it. I'll file for a temporary protective order with photographic evidence of stalking. You'll need to install cameras, keep a journal, every incident. And if she comes back again, don't engage. Just call us." It wasn't what I wanted to hear. I wanted her locked up. Wanted someone to sit her down and explain how utterly messed up she was, how no normal human behaves like this. But deep down, I knew no one could fix her. Not therapy. Not prison. Not even the reflection in the mirror. That same night, I installed cameras inside and outside the condo. Bought a motion sensor light. Slept with a crowbar under the bed, not because I planned on using it, but because peace of mind has a price. I started recording everything. Not out of fear, but strategy. She thought she was running a game, but now I was playing too. A few days later, I got a call from Melanie again. "She's in the hospital." My pulse didn't change. "Why?" "She tried to swallow a bottle of pills. Left a note blaming you." "Of course she did." "She'll be okay," Melanie added quickly. She made sure someone found her in time. Left the door unlocked, messaged her friend a minute before. She wanted it to look dramatic. Not real. It made sense. Rebecca wasn't suicidal. She was manipulative. Everything she did was a production with an audience in mind. "Did she mention me by name?" "In the note?" "Yes," she said, but in a weird way. Like she was still in love with you. Said she couldn't live in a world where you hated her. I stared at the ceiling, the phone hot in my hand. "I don't hate her." "You don't?" "No," I said. "You can't hate someone who's already dead to you." After I hung up, I thought about what it meant. That she could orchestrate her own fake overdose just to play the victim again. It was like watching a snake try to cry. The tears were there, sure, but only because it got caught slithering through fire. The hospital stay only lasted 48 hours. Then she checked herself out. And that's when she made her next move. I got home one evening to find a note under my door. It wasn't folded. It wasn't hidden. Just placed there deliberately. I'm pregnant. 2 words. No name. No proof. No context. I stared at the paper like it might catch fire in my hands. My first instinct? Doubt. Second? Rage. Third? Sadness. I couldn't stop asking myself the question, what if she's not lying? But then I remembered who I was dealing with. A woman who faked abuse. Faked victimhood. Faked love. Of course she'd fake this too. I called Chad. He picked up on the 3rd ring. Yeah, she's saying she's pregnant. Dead silence on the other end. Then a groan. She told me the same thing last month. Did you believe her? Not for a second. She drinks like a fish and said she missed her period because of stress. When I asked for a test, she said I was disrespecting her womb. I hung up. That was the moment I finally let go of the last string holding her to any part of my soul. I could have raged, screamed, sent a lawyer to her door, but I didn't. Instead, I did something that hurt her more than anything else I ever could have done. I ignored her. No reply. No text. No reaction. Because you don't negotiate with emotional terrorists. You starve them. And that silence, it was louder than any insult, louder than any revenge. It told her, you don't matter anymore. Not even enough to hate. 2 weeks passed. Silence. Not a single call. No text. No shadow outside my window. No random emails from fake accounts. No strange packages at my door. It was like someone had pulled her plug. Or maybe she'd found a new victim to bleed dry. Either way, I didn't care. I slept through the night for the first time in months. Ate food that didn't taste like cardboard. Looked in the mirror without flinching. But peace never lasts long when you've been marked by someone like Rebecca. One afternoon, I got a call from a blocked number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Mr. Callahan? Yes. This is Detective Lanes with SDPD. We'd like you to come down to the station for a quick statement. It's about a recent report filed against you. My jaw locked. By who? I think you already know. I showed up the next morning with my lawyer, Miles. We sat in a sterile office while the detective clicked through a file on a cheap laptop. Then he turned the screen. There she was, Rebecca, sitting in a room just like this one, eyes wide, voice calm, a single tear rolling down her cheek like it had been rehearsed. She claims you broke into her apartment 3 nights ago, the detective said. Said you waited inside, screamed threats, and left a threatening note. She's lying, I said flatly. I figured, he replied. Your lawyer already provided your alibi, restaurant security footage, time-stamped Uber receipts, and surveillance video from your condo building. We're not pursuing charges. But she's pushing hard. Miles leaned in. We want her charged with filing a false report. The detective nodded. We're working on it. But people like her know how to dance around the system. This was her shot. It didn't land. Be ready for the next one. I walked out of that station cold and tired. Not scared. Not angry. Just done. But then something happened that flipped everything on its head. That evening, I got a call from Melanie again, only this time, she wasn't panicked. She was excited. Nervous. Breathless. She slipped up, Ryan, she said. She confessed. In front of me. My boyfriend was recording on his phone without her knowing. What did she say? She said she faked the pregnancy, the overdose, and the break-in story. She even said she sold the apartment illegally by forging your signature. My heart stopped. You have the recording? I'll send it now. And she did. Crystal clear audio. Rebecca bragging, like she was recounting her greatest hits. Talking about how easy it was to manipulate the cops. How Chad was just a phase. How I was too soft to ever come after her legally. I forwarded the file to my lawyer before the call even ended. The next day, a civil suit was filed. Fraud. Defamation. Harassment. Perjury. She didn't respond at first. Then her lawyer sent a shaky email asking if we were open to negotiation. I didn't reply. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about setting fire to the paper trail she thought she could hide behind. By week's end, her accounts were frozen. Her assets under review. She couldn't sell, move, or even book a flight without alerting the courts. And just like that, the girl who thought she could break me shattered herself. The last time I saw her was in court. She walked in with dark glasses and a cheap black suit, trying to look like a victim. But the mask was cracking. Her eyes were hollow, her hands trembling. She didn't speak once. I did. I told the judge everything. Calmly. Factually. No venom, no theatrics. Just the truth. The audio helped. So did the video footage. The forged documents. The restraining orders. The detective's statement. When I finished, she couldn't even look up. We were dismissed. No prison time, not yet. But full financial restitution. Legal restrictions. Psychological evaluation. And me? I walked out of that courtroom a free man. Not because justice was perfect, but because I never let her destroy me. I won. By surviving. Life after Rebecca wasn't some magical rebirth. There were no fireworks. No deep spiritual awakening. Just quiet. And I didn't realize how loud she'd been in my life until that quiet settled in. I moved through days like a man learning how to walk again. Slow. Careful. Checking my footing with every step. Every noise at night still made me flinch. Every blocked number still made my heart spike. But each day, that fear faded just a little more. I started fixing things I didn't even know were broken. Got back into running. Cut my hair differently. Stopped drinking. Hell, I even started sleeping with the window open again, something I hadn't done in years, because she always said the breeze messed up her skin. I didn't realize how many small parts of myself I'd sacrificed to keep her satisfied. How much I'd given away, piece by piece, thinking it was compromise when really, it was slow death. Then one night, while organizing old files on my laptop, I found a video. Us. On our 3rd anniversary. She was in the kitchen, making pancakes in one of my oversized shirts, laughing, messy hair, flour on her cheek. I remember filming it because it felt like one of those perfect mornings you want to bottle up and live in forever. And watching it now, it made me sick. Because that girl never existed. Not really. She wasn't laughing because she loved me. She was laughing because she could. Because she knew I adored her. Knew I would do anything. And she thrived off that power like oxygen. I deleted the video. And it didn't hurt. It felt like cleaning a wound that had already scarred. I started dating again. Slowly. Cautiously. I wasn't looking for anything serious, just conversation. Company. A reminder that not all women lie with their eyes open. And somewhere in that slow re-entry into the world, I met Lauren. She wasn't flashy. She didn't try to impress me. She asked questions, actually listened, and didn't flinch when I told her I'd been through hell. She didn't try to fix me. She just let me exist. And that, somehow, was everything. One night, we were sitting in her apartment, legs tangled, talking about the dumbest things, like how cereal should always be poured before the milk. She leaned her head on my chest and asked softly, "Do you still think about her?" I was quiet for a long time. Then I said, "Not her. Just the damage she left behind." She nodded. "That's fair." And that was the thing. With Rebecca, everything had been about dominance, power, control. But with Lauren, it was just human, honest, no games. And I realized something important. Rebecca didn't destroy me. She exposed me. She showed me what I let slide, what I tolerated, what I thought was love but was really just survival in disguise. And now, I know better. I know what red flags look like, what manipulation feels like, what silence can mean, and when it's dangerous. I don't smile much when I talk about those years, but I don't hide from them either. Because every scar I earned with her reminds me that I walked through fire, and I came out the other side, burned but breathing. So if you're reading this, and you're with someone who lies to your face, laughs at your pain, and tries to convince you that you're the crazy one, leave. Don't wait for the perfect exit. Just go. Because no matter how scary it feels to start over, it's nothing compared to the nightmare of staying. Trust me, I lived it. And I survived. It's strange how survival doesn't come with a finish line. There's no banner that drops from the sky saying, "Congratulations, you made it out." One day, you just realize, you don't flinch when you hear their name. You don't rehearse arguments in the shower. You don't wake up with your heart racing because of some memory that clawed its way into your dreams. You just live. I started going back to old places. The coffee shop I avoided because we used to sit in the corner booth and argue over nothing. The beach where she told me, with fake tears in her eyes, that I was too safe for her. The bookstore where I once waited 3 hours for her to show up, only to get a text saying, "Got caught up. Sorry, babe." I walked into every place I'd once avoided and reclaimed it. Not for revenge. Not for some dramatic closure. But because I deserved to exist without her fingerprints on my life. And it hit me one night, standing in line for a movie, holding Lauren's hand. I wasn't scared anymore. Not of Rebecca. Not of love. not of myself. Because I'd faced the worst someone could do to my heart and still had the courage to offer it again, not recklessly, not blindly, but fully aware of how fragile it was. I don't believe in karma. Not really. But I do believe in consequence. The last I heard, Rebecca tried to scam another guy, forged a lease in his name, drained his savings. He pressed charges. She's facing trial. Part of me wanted to feel triumphant, vindicated. But mostly, I felt nothing. Because revenge isn't making them suffer. Revenge is no longer caring if they do. So, if there's one thing I'd tell the guy I used to be, the one who stood in that hallway, phone to his ear, hearing his wife laugh while saying, "I'm divorcing you, and I already sold the apartment," it's this. She didn't break you. She broke the illusion. And that might be the best damn thing she ever did. Now, I live with the windows open. No secrets. No shadows. And every breath I take feels like a quiet promise to myself. Never again.